Hi, everyone. Good to see you. It's nice to be home in California. So I am out of the government now. I left as undersecretary 2 years ago. I left about 9 months later as special envoy. When I was trying to leave, they wanted me to stay, so I came up with a good temporary job as special envoy. But now I sit on corporate boards, including 2 in California. I spend some of my time in San Francisco, spend some of my time in Washington. I have a 22-year-old daughter who graduated from Bucknell University in May, went to culinary school. She played Division I volleyball at Bucknell, and graduated from culinary school at the top of her class in December and decided that she wanted to go work for a high-tech startup. And so she lives in San Francisco and is doing that. I really loved when I lived here in Alamo. I lived in this part of California from 1988 until I became Undersecretary of State in 2009. As Undersecretary of State, I was never in the country. As you can imagine, we don't have arms control agreements with Pennsylvania or Florida. They're mostly with countries like Russia. So when President Obama and Hillary Clinton asked me to become Undersecretary of State in early 2009, I just won my 7th term in the House. I was chairman of the Strategic Forces Subcommittee of the House Armed Services Committee. I've been serving on that committee for 13 years. One of the reasons why I went onto the Armed Services Committee is this is the only congressional district in the country that has 2 national nuclear labs in it, Lawrence Livermore Lab, and Sandia, California, which sit next to each other in Livermore. And they have about 9,000 employees. So at the time, it was actually the largest employer in the district. When I was a very small child, at 25, I was one of the first women to have a seat on the New York Stock Exchange. So I found myself at a young age in an environment where there really weren't any women working, and where most of the men that worked there had left the women home for 100 years. And I was put there to kind of help make the change. So I'm used to having an environment around me of change, where I am part of the catalytic issue of getting the change happen. I decided to go into government after a long career in investment banking when my husband and I moved out here. As I said, I moved here in 1988 and ran for Congress in 1996. That was the modern world record for not living in a place before running for Congress. But I was elected 7 times because I sounded and looked just like the people that live here. I have a high-tech background, went to college, and wanted to serve my country and serve the people of my district. I know that politics has become a dirty 4-letter word. One of the reasons why people don't like politics is because it's so personal. I think there's way too much personal attack going on in politics. And while I was in office, I regretted seeing that all the time, seeing people run attack ads on television, basically telling you why so-and-so was a bad guy or a bad woman, why you couldn't trust them, why the people that they associated with were bad. And that's one of the reasons why around the country you see that members go to Congress with less than 50% of their constituents voting. In this particular congressional district, my old district, I used to go to Congress with almost 80, sometimes 85% of my constituents voting. And that's because we come from a very well-educated, very energetic district with people that have traveled not only around the world and moved around the world, but understand that there is a connection between the private sector and what government does. So we all know that we have many layers of government. It's a little like a tortilla salad. There's many different pieces to it. So at the lowest level, you've got local government. That's your town council, your school board, and these are people that live in your community and are directly elected and do things for that specific community. Then you've got your county. It's a bigger aggregation of a number of different towns, and the county does a number of different things, sometimes transportation policy, sometimes environmental policy. Some of your taxes go to them. Then you've got your state government. California, obviously our state capital is in Sacramento. And then you've got your federal government. And all of those governments have to work with each other in concert to maintain their jurisdictional authority, to do what they're meant to do for that jurisdiction, but then work together to either put money together for road projects, bridge projects, water treatment projects, deal on environmental law, come together on education policy, and move everybody forward. The reason why I was happy to be invited today is because I think the best people to talk to about why government matters are people that are already invested in the government. Because you and your families already pay attention to government, because your parents and perhaps an older sibling already vote more than almost any other place in the country, I wanted to see what I could do to get you interested in being people that will talk to your peers around the country and influence them to move away from what I think is a very, very dangerous symptom of cynicism, where people are deciding that they can opt out of paying attention about the government. You can do that. You can decide that you don't like the way people talk to each other, you don't like the tenor of the debate, you don't like the issues people talk about, you don't think that you agree with what they want to do. You can do that. But then you're going to get the government that the people that vote want you to have without your say. Doesn't sound like it's going to really represent your interests, does it? And it doesn't. But as we see around the country, more and more and more people are opting out. And they say pretty much the same thing, something probably they've heard from somebody else. I don't like the way they talk. I don't like the fact that they are personally attacking each other. I don't like the fact that they don't seem to get anything done. So let's unpack those two things, and let's see what we can get you to think about doing to get things to be different. The good news is you don't have to do much around here. There isn't much of that happening here. So you are not only an example, but you are someone that wants other places to change, because pretty much what you have is working. But you can't get anything done because other people are sending people to Sacramento, or mostly to Washington, that don't have a temperament for compromise, aren't interested in getting anything done. So because they decide to sit on their hands, even though your member and your delegation from California is working hard to get things done, there are only 53 votes in California. It's the biggest state delegation. But in order to pass something out of the House of Representatives, you need 218. So Florida, Pennsylvania, Arizona, New York, New Jersey, North Dakota, South Dakota decide to send people to Washington that don't want things to happen. It doesn't matter how many times the delegation from California proposes something that you need and that you want and that you've sent them to go get, because we don't have 218 votes. And that's why I think it's important that Californians stand up and try to get some of the things that we have here in California, and get other people, like-minded people around the country, to stand up and try to make the changes we're going to need so that we have a government that's effective and one that will deliver the kinds of investments and policies with a little less politics that are going to improve your chances to have the kind of life that I know you aspire to. So the two things we want to unpack very quickly, one is the way people talk, and the second thing is, how do you send people with the right temperament? Politics matters because politics is used in every personal interaction. All politics basically is understanding what you care about and what you want in a relationship, understanding what the other person wants, and finding a way to achieve that for both of you. It's a simple set of understandings, it's a simple set of listening skills, and it's a simple set of just being respectful. And if you want to transact something with somebody, whether it's deciding where to go to lunch today, whether it's deciding where you're going to live, whether it's deciding what to invest in, whether it's deciding what kind of public policy you want to support, the only way you're going to get anything done is to know how to represent yourself and then to listen to the other person and try to find the sweet spot where you and that other person can come to agreement. That's the art of negotiating. Everyone negotiates all the time. You don't think of it that way because it sounds like it's some kind of big deal with a signing ceremony and a big check at the end. But all of life is about negotiating because life is about compromise and life is about respect and being able to find a way to agree. So that's the first piece. So how do we make sure that people have the right listening skills and understand that? And that the art of running for election and the art of electing someone is more about ideas than ideology and more about listening than making accusations. The truth of the matter is the voter really should have the say there. And that means you need active voters who are going to insist that the people offering themselves up to become a representative in Washington or a member of the state assembly or to sit on the school board stick to the subject. Tell me why I should support you. Tell me why your ideas are good. Tell me why I think you can be effective. Show me that you can listen. Show me you can be respectful. And then that very, very prized thing that you need from me, my vote, may be something I give to you. That's the way we can change the debate, away from accusations, away from personal attacks, things you see on the national level. So the second thing is, how do you make sure that people going to Congress have the right temperament? Part of it is that when I was in the Congress, I was the leader of the centrist Democrats. There were 60 of us. Most of them are out of Congress now. They either got defeated in 2008 or 2010. I left on my own, but many of us just got tired of being the thing that both sides ran over as they tried to get to the other side to attack the other guy. And we got run over all the time. In California, some of you may remember, a few elections ago, we passed 2 ballot initiatives that are pretty much state-of-the-art and give us a sense of opportunity to elect people without really party affiliation in a way where you can really let people advance on ideas as opposed to ideology. The first thing is that we all agreed in California that we were going to have primary elections that allowed people to vote for whomever they wanted, regardless of party. So if you're a Democrat, registered Democrat, you can vote for a Republican or an independent or a Democrat. Same thing. And then regardless of party, the 2 top vote getters advance to the general election. It used to be that Democrats put up Democrats, Republicans put up Republicans in the primary, and then both parties had only the ability to vote for that party person. So if you were in a district dominated by Republicans, the Republican would advance, the Democrat would advance, and then you'd have a general election between a Democrat and a Republican. Now, whoever the 2 top vote getters are, regardless of party, advance to the general election. What does that mean? That means that this is more about ideas and a person's effectiveness than it is about party politics. Now, you can imagine the party politicians didn't like this. Actually, we had this one time before in 1998, and both parties actually got together, sued the state of California, and won. And in the next election, we went back to partisan primaries. But the people of California were smarter. They figured out that we really don't want to have to do it that way because we really don't want this to be only about party affiliation. So it came up again a couple of years ago, and it passed. So now, people can be good Democrats and Republicans, but you're going to vote for them regardless of your party affiliation. You're going to vote for the person you think is best for the job. So you could have 2 Democrats running against each other in the general election. You can have 2 Republicans. You can have a Democrat and an independent, a Republican and an independent, a third party. And so it's very much a new way of doing things. There are 2 other states in the country that do it that way, Iowa and Maine. Both of them are small, and both of them are states that have pioneered this kind of independent way. So you see in California, in the last 2 elections, we've had both Democrats and Republicans running against each other in the general election. And I think that that has really changed the opportunity for us to have members of Congress that are less party-controlled, much more idea-driven, much more independent, much more able to serve you and not people from their party, and to go back to Washington and advance ideas in a way that is not only respectful, but more effective because they can stand on their independence and get things done. So why does that matter that we've done this in California? Well, as I said earlier, it matters because just because we've done it, we can feel very self-satisfied, but it doesn't really get us anywhere because we only have 53 votes. And unless other states begin to do what we're doing in California, we're still going to face the situation of being self-satisfied, having good people represent us, having them be independent, having them talk about ideas, not ideology, but they're still talking to themselves. Because when they go back to Washington, 47 states are doing it the old way. And they're sending people that now, because of computers and the way that you do redistricting, they're sending people that only have to win a primary election. Now, if you're going to win a primary election, be it Democrat or Republican, if you look at the spectrum, the primary election is to get people from your own party to vote for you. So if this is the middle, and this is the end of the party and the end of the other party, you're going to stay more toward the edge of your party, to the more extreme end of your party, be it to the far right or the far left, in order to get as many people from your party to vote for you. You're not going to be in the middle. And if you do not have to face a general election opponent, because once you win the primary, there is no other party with a majority to beat you, then you effectively have won the general election in the primary. What does that say? It says we get what we have now. In my opinion, too many people in Washington that are not only more beholden to their party than they are to their constituents, not only too extreme toward the far ends of either part of the spectrum, but also people that cannot be held accountable because it's very difficult to vote them out of office. Because pretty much their party is going to win that election. And as long as they win their party's primary, they're the member of Congress. And so it really stilts and tilts the kind of attitudes and effectiveness of people that go to Congress if they are really not people that can be held at risk for losing their election. So that's the situation that we have in almost 30 states right now. And that is why I believe it is important for people of California, especially very active people like you, to talk about the issues of nonpartisan redistricting and to talk about the kinds of ballot initiatives that we have here in California that give people a chance to have people that run that are less ideological in both parties and for independents to run, and so that you can send people back to Washington that you can really hold accountable, because they're accountable not only in the primary election, but they're also held accountable in the general election. I think you're going to start to hear a lot of people talking about this as the 2014 election comes up. As you know, it's a big election for the Senate and for the House of Representatives nationally. And then, of course, in 2016, we have a presidential election. And I think this issue is going to come up because people are really getting sick and tired of not only having an effective Congress, but one that they can't seem to find how to hold accountable or at risk for re-election. So these are the kinds of things that I think are important for people like you to think about. I know that you are very active. I know how smart you are. And I know that you have other things to worry about. But the reason I think it's important for you to care about this issue now is that you probably, or at least some of you, will be voting in the 2016 election and afterwards. Certainly your older siblings will be voting, and your parents will be voting. I'm not concerned about how well we do here. I think that the people that are elected out of this part of California, by and large, are really terrific members of both the Congress, the State Assembly, and the State Senate, and they are really people that can be held at risk and held accountable. But as I said earlier, unless we start to be able to influence people around the country, unless we start to be able to really name what the problem is when people talk about the incivility in Congress, when they talk about the inability of Congress to get things done. There was just a poll done on Wednesday where 80% of the American people believe that the Congress was ineffective. That's a lot of people that are upset. And I think this is one of the ideas that we could begin to advance out of California that will not only help our 53 votes mean more, because we will meet fellow travelers from other states. Now, Maine, who only has 2 representatives, and Iowa, who has 4, so that means we've got 58 representatives that come from states that are, really able to stand up and be independent. As I said, we need 218. That's still a lot of other states we've got to convince. So I just wanted to put this bug in your ear so that you can hear from someone that was on the front lines, who ran for Congress 7 times, who won 7 times. As one of my former colleagues said to me at a party a couple weeks ago, here we are, undefeated and unindicted. Even though I'm out of government, I still care about it. And I care about you. And I know that it takes people of influence and smart people like you. So when you hear these discussions, when you see them online, when you're on social media, when you're in your class, when you're talking to your parents, when you're talking to your cousins and other friends that live in other states, when they start to talk about this issue, tell them you think you know what the answer might be. Tell them you have something you want to propose to them, that they look at the California ballot initiatives that created an open primary, and see if they think that this is something that they can bring to their state. Because unfortunately, until other states do the reforms that we've done, we're still going to be 53 votes. We're still going to need 218, and we're not going to have the effective Congress that we need. I look forward to hopefully getting some good questions from you when we have our Q&A time. Let me just thank you again for all this time on a good Saturday. I hope you have a great day.